A lot has happened in the history of the USA that still has an impact on today's society. The US has always been a country of extremes. I already mentioned several times this chapter that we are looking at a stereotypical image of the USA. How can we not, when there is so much to discuss but so little time to discuss it in? Today's lecture is about today's society, about things that are happening right now that impact the whole world. Gay marriage, gun control, the death penalty, school shootings, and the current president. Let's dive in. The USA is a country in which people are allowed to carry and own guns. This comes from the Second Amendment of the Bill of Rights. People think owning guns is for the protection of the people. As outsiders, it is hard to believe why America is so firm in this belief. It is possible to explain that to you, but not within the time of this lecture. But know that the Americans have their reasons to be firm on this. A few incidents have had a significant impact on the topic of gun control in the USA. Columbine High School Massacre. In 1999, two boys, 17 and 18 years old, went into their high school carrying multiple weapons and homemade bombs. They killed 12 students and one teacher before eventually killing themselves. The Virginia Tech shooting. 8 years after the Columbine High School Massacre, in 2007, a man, 23 years old, killed 32 people and then shot himself at the Virginia Tech University. This was the deadliest shooting in the history of the USA. Sandy Hook shooting. In 2012, the Sandy Hook shooting even brought genuine tears to President Obama's eyes when a 20-year-old man walked into an elementary school and shot and killed 20 children and 6 teachers. This might have been enough for us in the Netherlands to ban guns altogether, but as said, this is very difficult to do in the US. But some little things did change after these shootings. For example, metal detectors appeared in high schools and more armed guards were hired at universities. Stricter rules for buying weapons came into effect, and there was also talk of a ban on large magazines. The strange thing is that more than half the people in the US are against guns. 55% of the people want actually stricter laws or even a prohibition on guns altogether. Yet this doesn't happen. This is because of two reasons. First off, the Constitution, the Second Amendment, is very hard to change, and second, the National Rifle Association has a lot of power because it spends a lot of money in the gun industry. The NRA is a firm believer that the government should not interfere with the rights of the people and spends a lot of money convincing the inhabitants of the USA as well as the government of this. A totally different subject the USA is very divided over is gay rights. Until 2004, it was not possible for gay couples in the US to marry legally. In June of 2015, the highest court in the USA, the Supreme Court, ruled that it was against the Constitution to ban marriages. This ruling made it legal for gay couples to get married everywhere in the USA. A serious controversy that keeps rearing its ugly head is the death penalty. The capital punishment, as it is officially called, is still legal in 31 states. In this case, capital means the highest. In 2016, the state of Delaware was the last state to abolish the death penalty. It sounds strange that states can decide whether or not to use the death penalty, but because the USA is so large, it doesn't have one government, but 3. These governments have their own laws, which is how each state can decide for themselves if a death penalty should be enforced or abolished. Nowadays, executions are mostly done by lethal injection. The past few days there have been a lot of difficulties concerning the toxic cocktails with which the prisoners are executed. This is because the main manufacturer of the toxic cocktail stopped producing and selling the chemicals for this particular use. In some states there are several ways to be executed. Lethal injection is the main form of execution in all states, but there are also other ways still practiced today. These other forms of carrying out the death penalty are the electric chair, the gas chamber, hanging, and the firing squad. Convicted criminals wait for their death on death row, a separate part of the prison. When a person is on death row, it can still take a long while for them to be executed. The longest a person has ever had to wait was 33 years. Executions are sometimes planned 5 years in advance. The last thing we will talk about this chapter is the president. Many presidents struggled with the power the job brought with it, because everything a president does is followed by the whole world. This makes it difficult to do something without anyone knowing, as these following presidents found out. Richard Nixon, the 37th president of the US, eavesdropped on the whole country. He thought it was his right. George W. Bush is known for supposedly fabricating evidence to go to war with Iraq. Even Barack Obama has had it rough, and he struggled with his popularity ever since he forced every person in the US to have health insurance in 2008, the Affordable Care Act, which is better known under the name Obamacare. But maybe the best known scandal is that of Bill Clinton, whose words still ring in the minds of many people in the US. He said, "I did not have sexual relations with that woman." He meant Monica Lewinsky, his secretary, who had accused him of having had an affair with him during his presidency. And now, of course, we have perhaps the most controversial president ever. Donald Trump won the presidential elections even though he lost by popular votes. His relationship with the press is very bad, and he is often seen as a narcissistic person because he only seems to do what is best for him, even though his motto is "Make America Great Again." The day after Trump's inauguration, a peaceful protest called the Women's March of Washington, a strong link to the March on Washington by Martin Luther King Jr. in 1963, drew 500,000 people who protested against the new president. It is strange to think that this man became president. Trump is very active on social media, but perhaps just like you, he doesn't always think before he posts things. This can cause friction between him and other world leaders. Only time will tell what he will do for the country. As you've heard in this lecture, the USA is a wonderful country with a lot of extremes. We hope we have given you just a little more insight into the country, even though we cannot stress enough that these lectures only give a very stereotypical image of the country. We will have to wait and see what will happen now that Trump is the new president. Try to do your own research about the US. Every day there are new things in the news, so start following that a little bit. That way you can form your own opinion about this country of extremes.